Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I am pleased to be joined by Sean Korsgaard, the editor of the new Battleborn Sword and Sorcery magazine. Sean, thanks so much for being here.
Pleasure is mine, Jonathan. Thank you for having me.
We're going to be talking about this new Sword and Sorcery magazine that is run by you, and I believe it is kind of partnered with the good folks over at Iron Age Media. Is that correct?
That is correct, as well as I am the new editor of their publication, Anvil Magazine. So pulling double bubble for them over there. And I'm
Nice.
very excited for both the next few issues of Anvil and the brand spanking Blood and Thunder debut of Battleborn.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Battleborn is on IndieGoGo right now. It is currently up. You can go and back it, and we're going to be talking about the different options. We're going to be talking about what stories are coming up. We're going to talk about the authors. We got so much to talk about. But first, I want to talk about the inception of Battleborn as a magazine. Where did this all come from?
It came up between conversations between myself and the late, great Howard Andrew Jones. So it was early last year, and he and the fine folks at Goodman Games, much love for the crew over there in Dungeon Crawl Classics, made the hard decision to sell Tales of the Magician's Skull to a new owner. That was, for those who don't know, Howard Andrew Jones's magazine, where he nurtured and became the focal point of the renaissance we're seeing in sword and sorcery. And it was so he could focus on Hannibal full time. And I know it was a hard choice for him and a hard choice for Goodman, because he'd built such a wonderful identity with that magazine, a wonderful stable of authors. And we got into talking about, like, if he was starting again today, or if I was to start one now, what would be done differently? What authors would you tap? What approaches would you do differently? I forget who eventually pitched the idea of starting a new one, but I know the name was all Howard, Battleborn, because it captured what he felt was missing from the modern magazine scene. Because Sword and Sorcery is very lucky that on the indie side, it has all these wonderful magazines. Old Moon, which has that horror tinge touch to the genre, Sursova for the pulps, DMR Books, if you like the classics, New Edge for the weirder stuff. But it's missing that heroic, character focused, character driven, action heavy Sword and Sorcery. I mean, Howard coined the term New Edge, but there's a lot of new. Where's the edge? And we wanted to bring that to the forefront with Battleborn. Every issue to have pulse pounding action and memorable heroes from the best and brightest in the genre. And originally, the plan was to launch last fall. And as unfortunately we all know, we ended up dealing with a very different crowdfunder with Howard and his eventually fatal brain cancer.
Hmm.
But eventually, we dried the tears and relaunched the magazine this year, and I'm very happy with some of the directions we're headed. We've got issue one fully funded right now. We're about halfway to issue two, and ideally, this time next year, we'll be toasting three brand new issues of Battleborn Magazine, which I wish to point out here will have Howard's name in the masthead from first issue to last as editor emeritus, because he was foundational to the magazine's conception, and he is the beating heart of its spirit, and he always will be.
For those of you, for the people who are watching who have not backed magazines like this before, can you tell us what they can expect to see inside the magazine if they were to back it and get a physical copy?
So the good news is, unlike a lot of magazines, about 70% of our fiction is already turned in. So we've already got the content. You are buying the guaranteed shipping date, not the vague promise of fiction being written, as some Kickstarters may be. But you are getting 70 to 80,000 words of world-class, hard-knuckle, hard-fighting sword and sorcery in every issue. You're getting largely original fiction, but as well as reprints, because one of those things Howard and I discussed was, how do you bring the classics to that next generation? And Beyond even the classics, there are still people who've never read Robert E. Howard, Michael Moorcock, the foundational authors of the genre. Heck, I'm a new father. I know there's going to be that time my boy picks up Robert E. Howard or Conan the first time, and if it's in a magazine like Battleborn, so much the better. So every issue is going to have a reprint. Our first two has Pearls of the Vampire Queen by Michael Shea, the last sword and sorcery author to win the World Fantasy Award. And this story has not been in print by itself since 1977.
Wow.
Likewise, for David Drake fans, I adore his military sci-fi. I'm an Army veteran myself, and the influence he's had on veterans in the field is unparalleled. But he never gets the credit it's due for his sword and sorcery. He was a World Fantasy Award finalist multiple times, and his Vedius and Damas stories deserve to be mentioned in the Grand Company of Conan and Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser and all of them. And we're reprinting one of them, The Manticore, which has not been printed since before I was born. And both of these stories will be ebooks for the first time in Battleborn, audiobooks too, hopefully. So you get the fresh fiction, you get the reprinted fiction, and then you get the nonfiction, because we're also having 10,000 words of everything from genre history to military heroic profiles, because everybody from Robert E. Howard, when he was poring over the stories of the Crusades in World War I, to Howard Andrew Jones would read Medal of Honor citations to draw inspiration for his heroes. And I hope some of the history we highlight in that nonfiction will inspire another generation of authors. We'll have reviews from Greg Mel, comics from Skylar Hernstrom, several things from Skylar Hernstrom for those who know their indie fantasy, and black and white interior artwork that I hope will take your breath away, and certainly sell a few posters and decorate a few vans and dorm halls in due time.
So, do you know approximately how long the issues will be, most likely?
Between 80 and 85,000 words each. So you're getting a novel length magazine every issue. And through the Indiegogo, hardcover will be exclusive, but for everyone else, ebooks and paperback digest size will follow.
Okay.
And that first issue, we already have the release date locked in, February 18th, 2026. For those
Uh,
who know their history, that is when Weird Tales dropped its first issue over a century ago, because we honor and remember our genre's past here at Battle.
Nice. And so we have a lot of stuff to talk about with this. I want to start talk a little bit about the foundation for people. Everybody knows that you have to start with Conan the Barbarian for the basically creation of the genre. But who are some of the other people? You were kind of alluding to some of them in when you're talking earlier, but who are the other people that are the ones that you're like, if you like these classic writers, or you will like stuff in Battleborn, or comps from modern day. Who are some modern day writers that you could also recommend?
So I literally have a list of the classic authors right here for another project I might talk to you about in the future. But in terms of foundational authors for the genre, I have what is my starter kit that I actually give as gifts to my nephews and my godsons and friends who want to be introduced to the genre. The Coming of the Conan the Cimmerian, the Del Rey edition, Robert E.
Hmm.
Howard's collection of a lot of his Conan the Barbarian short fiction. And by the by, there are worse ways to go about this than just reading everything Robert E. Howard ever wrote. The Robert E. Howard Foundation puts out some beautiful books for those looking to start. Then you get one of the Michael Moorcock Elric of Melniboné collections being put out by Saga right now.
Hmm.
They're beautiful, they're hardcover, and they're a lot cheaper than the book collector editions I had to buy before those existed. So savor that and buy them. And then you start with Lord of a Shattered Land by Howard Andrew Jones, which, in addition to being heavily biased because I was the one who got that published, it is one of the few books that makes me feel like I'm that 13-year-old boy reading Conan and Elric again for the first time. And that magic feeling is something I chase every time I pick up new sword and sorcery. But between those three, you get a sampling of the golden age of sword and sorcery, its silver age in the 70s and 80s as it went weird and experimental, and its modern champions. And then you can go as deep or as wide as you want with those. Everything from C.L. Moore and Fritz Leiber from the Golden Age. So you get your Jura Lajoie and Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, David Drake and Charles Saunders from the Middle Age, or today, everybody from Scott Oden to John C. Hawking to Greg Mell and C.L. Werner. We are very lucky that after a long dark age, starting about in 1990, we have seen a renaissance in independent and small press publishing for sword and sorcery because that appetite, that love of heroes and classic blood and thunder fantasy, don't call it a comeback. It's been there for years and it's back and better than ever now.
So there are some kind of more recent authors who have been carrying the torch alive. Not just Howard, who obviously really made a big impact recently, but there's also people like I think a lot of people would consider Larry Correia with his recent Son of the Black Sword, which really had a lot of sword and sorcery influences. Are there any others that have been carrying the torch during that 1990 to present period?
So Larry doesn't get nearly the credit he should within the scene. And I say this because trad pubbed authors for sword and sorcery were a very rare breed until very recently. You had Scott Lynch and Joe Abercrombie, David Gemmell, and you had Larry. And Larry especially holds a special place in my heart because, yes, I was that teenager who fell in love with Conan, Elric, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, but it was Larry Correia's Forgotten Warrior saga, the Son of the Black Sword, that really made me rediscover my love of heroic fantasy and sword and sorcery and all that whole approach to fantasy I thought was left in the past. And it made me look elsewhere for other authors, and it made me fall in love with Larry's work. Heck, for that matter, it was the first Son of the Black Sword was the first book my eventual wife ever gave me. There is
Oh.
literally a little human being that exists because of those books. And for all of our watchers out there, give your lovers sword and sorcery. You never know where life might take you. But Larry deserves to be mentioned in the company of authors who kept the torch alive and the genre still present in the minds of readers while the Renaissance was still being rallied in the background. So I hope he gets the credit for that someday, if not soon.
He may
But
not. He.
Scotland,
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
oh,
Go ahead.
but Scott Lynch also terrific, and it's wonderful to see him writing again. Thorn of Emberlane on the way, terrific short fiction. You might see him pop up in some interesting places soon. All I can say.
Okay.
But and Joe Abercrombie, of course, Lord Grimdark himself has been doing some very interesting work on that field. But that trifecta helped carry the torch until the counterattack from all the people in the indie scene really took to the field.
hmm Now, going back to the IndieGoGo for the moment, what are some of the authors that you can highlight that are participating in specifically Volume One?
So one of the things I'm very happy with Battleborn is that you have, for people who may not know modern sword and sorcery outside of Howard or Larry or authors like that, it's a wonderful primer for some of the best and brightest of the genre today, not just in terms of the authors, but some of their longtime heroes. A good example is C.L. Warren, who, for those of you who might not know the name, might know him from a little franchise he helped a lot of its storylines by the name of Warhammer, where he was
Mm.
one of its foundational authors for so long. And he created a character by the name of Shintaro Oba, who is this demon slaying Ronin, whose journeys have followed him through multiple magazines. And I think Warner is even putting together a collection or novel together that I'm very interested in. But with Battleborn number one, you have what is maybe the earliest of Oba's adventures with the blood of the Oni. But what makes Warner's approach to the genre so much is this is a man who not only cut his teeth writing Warhammer, but has been baptized in samurai flicks and kaiju films since he was a boy, and brings that love and knowledge of the genre to every story he writes. Greg Mell, who writes a lot of Mesoamerican fantasy, has a swashbuckler starring a character named Sargamos making his debut in our magazine, Jaguar's Children. And Greg Mell is a champion sword fighting instructor, so his taste for action is absolutely sublime. Robert Rhodes is a character named Gabriela de Catar, who made her debut in Tales of the Magician's Skull. He was one of the writers nurtured and mentored by Howard Andrew Jones. The plan was to have several of these stories following Gabriella in future issues in the magazine. They sold to new ownership, so instead, we have four of her stories lined up for the first 2 years of Battleborn. And I hope you fall in love with her the way Howard and I did. But of course, we've got Michael Shea's Pearls of the Vampire Queen, The Road of Kings, which is one of Robert E. Howard's most notable poems. Indie Sword and Sorcery has some brilliant talents, like Eric Wog and TJ Marquis, who both have new characters and settings making their debuts in the magazine. But for that first issue, especially for all of our Howard Andrew Jones fans, there is a Hannibal story that has never before been in print called A Stone's Throw, whose journey I think is very educational in that it was at one point the first story Howard ever wrote. And it was the first he ever got published way back in 2000 in a fanzine.
Mm-hmm.
And then he rewrote it a few years back into one of the first Hannibal stories.
Mm-hmm.
And then he polished it off again as a peek into what would have been or what might still be, with a little luck, the next step of Hannibal's journey as he leaves the Dervan Empire behind and explores the east of his world, seeking his daughter. But I think that's important to showcase that even a master of his craft like Howard can take almost 30 years to get a story to the point he's happy with it and where he wants it to be. And for all of our aspiring authors, remember that what you may feel isn't the right story might just not be in the right place yet. So never give up and never surrender on it. And beyond that first issue, just to highlight a couple others, we've got
Mm-hmm.
a brand new setting called The Drowned Empire from Michael Stackpole, who is likely our cover story for number two. Alyssa Hazel with a Mongolian deathworm story. Skylar Hernstrom with Motu and Kyrus in the White City, which I think is Sword the Sorcery's answer to the old Ursula K. Le Guin Omerlas paradox.
Mm-hmm.
That David Drake story I mentioned. Stephen Shrewsbury has a Rogan story. John C. Hawking, who and Scott Oden, who, along with Mike Stackpole, I think are the three authors alive who capture Robert E. Howard's writing style. Both have original settings they're exploring with new characters in our magazine. And that's just scratching the surface. So for all of you who crave character-focused, action-driven fantasy, Battleborn is going to have you on the edge of your seat, your goose flesh pricked up, and your heart pounding like a battle drum with every page. And I can't wait for all of you to discover these stories the way I did, because they don't make it in a magazine if there isn't something in there that stirs my blackened soul.
Do you
So,
have any tips for like if you want to join the IndieGoGo, what the different tiers are, what some like basic recommendations are?
so the good news is most of our stuff is add-on. So you can give as much or as little as you want and then add all the fancy bells and whistles. But as you can tell from our cheeky perk tiers, we've got Reaver, Slayer, Savage Sword. But the ones I especially recommend are anything involving our hardcover books, be it add-on or pledge level, because those are going to be crowdfunder exclusives. We will have digests and we will have ebooks moving forward. But I think we're going to keep the crowdfunders for the brave and the bold who back us in the beginning.
Hmm.
And moving forward years from now, we'll probably still have small runs for people who prefer the hardcovers, because I'll admit, I'm one of those guys. I like having something that I can know will still not be beaten up because I've got a house full of toddlers and my paperbacks have to be very high these days.
Hmm.
But for those just looking for a taste, we've got some cheap tiers that I recommend. And for those who are ready to take the plunge, we're even having everything from throwing knives to one of our add-ons that's particularly interesting is for those who want to be Tuckerized in a sword and sorcery story. Have you ever fantasized about being murdered in a fantasy story, killed in some gruesome and memorable fashion by one of your favorite authors and characters? You may very well have your chance. Or for that matter, if you want to have a manuscript of yours edited by me, I have a few discounted spots I'm putting to help get us over the edge. It doesn't matter if it's sword and sorcery, military sci-fi, or if you're particularly cruel, have me review your romantasy fan fiction because I am taking all comers.
Oh, that's yeah. It's good on you for offering that up.
I'm
Um,
a mercenary. I take whoever take.
and then you were saying when the first issue goes live in February, the non-exclusive stuff will still be available. Will that
Yes.
be on Indiegogo or will be another place that you can order that stuff?
So one of the things that a lot of these magazines, and I say with love, nothing but love for the other magazines in the scene, be it Tales, New Edge, Old Moon, Sursova, very few of them are available on Kindle. And I know that's one of the things that in the long term hurt Tales of the Magician's Skull. That was one of the things Howard and I talked about is that it would have found a much bigger audience had it been there. So some of you are wondering, what's it going to take for Battleborn to make it on the Kindle? Uh, issue one's already scheduled to be there February 18th.
Okay, that's good.
So day one, we will be available as an ebook everywhere fine ebooks are sold. But one of those things we are working on with that crowdfunder is distribution because we want our magazine to make it to newsstands, comic book stores, and all those good places. Because long term, I'll be utterly honest, with not but love for the folks who manage to do this year after year, crowdfunders are a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I would rather be editing the magazine, diving through slush piles, and everything we do moving forward is to make the magazine sustainable, whether that be our audiobooks, merchandise, which we're going to have profit sharing with both the authors and the artists on a lot of this stuff. It's so that next year we can talk about expansion or diving into the back catalog and republishing some interesting stuff as opposed to keeping the lights on for another year. But I really want the magazine to be reliable, dependable, and released on a regular schedule because that's the other thing that hurts a lot of these magazines or even the trad pub magazines have seen publication delays in recent years.
Hmm.
I mean, we've got Hugo nominees that struggle to put out one or two issues a year, and it's a very uncertain time. I say that not to criticize them, but because we need to have some different business models, and I'm hoping to explore a couple of them. And God willing, if I'm the one to crack that nut, I will happily guide others down that path
Right.
because it's a better world where we have more short fiction.
Yeah. And then I did want to ask about the philosophy on the artwork inside of them. This is something you and I have talked about separately, but I wanted to hear the philosophy of the magazine because this is a big deal for some people. There are people who are more accepting of AI, and then there's people who like me who are very much not accepting of AI with artwork. And so it's just something always interesting to ask is what is going
So,
to be Battleborn's?
so first, I do not wish to criticize the folks within independent publishing who rely on AI artwork because I'll admit one of the things that from the production side I've learned is that for every dollar we spend on production on Battleborn, about 60 cents on that dollar goes to artwork and that production. It is by far the most expensive part of the process.
Hmm.
So you do you. I will not. I do not attack people beside us in the trenches.
Yep.
That said, artificially intelligent created artwork and stories will never appear in my magazines, ever. To that point, that we are actually commissioning an art piece of art for our website of a legally distinct from Conan, cutting the head off of a legally distinct from Terminator. Header, they say the genre belongs to the robots. Subheader, not without a fight, it's not. No AI art.
I know a lot of people are going to be very appreciative of that because there's so many that they just won't say, and so we have to wonder. I
We
don't
are
know.
fully
So,
committed to human stories and human artwork. because we all know where we were the first time we saw Frank Frazetta or Ken Kelly or Michael Whalen's artwork. It stirs something within your soul.
Hmm.
And admittedly, I cannot afford Michael Whalen, and my necromancers have not quite gotten Frank Frazetta out of his grave yet. But the only way we get the next Frank Frazetta or Ken Kelly or Michael Whalen is by supporting our artists. And for that matter, the only way we get the next Robert E. Howard or Howard Andrew Jones is by supporting our authors.
Hmm.
And I hope to do both, and I hope to do so generously with Battleborn. That's one of the reasons we have that profit sharing agreement, is that I want my authors and my artists to have as much of a stake in this and as much of a profit in this as I do. Because we all win when we all have food on the table, right?
Right. So, if people want to not only follow the Indiegogo, but also just to follow Battleborn as a magazine, and then also follow you, where should they follow all that stuff online?
So we launched the Facebook page today, which is very exciting.
That's
So
great.
we have a Battleborn Magazine Twitter, Facebook, and otherwise look for me on any social media network for further updates. Likewise, a lot of our artists and authors, same deal. They have some people are more active on Blue Sky, like Mike Stackpole. Other people are more active on Facebook. Others are completely reclusive. I all types for all stripes for all people. But we are launching all of our social media networks as we speak. Twitter, we're
Hmm.
fairly active, Facebook as well. But battlebornmagazine.com will be our homepage as soon as the crowdfunder closes. Right now, of course, it directs to the crowdfunder, but in the meantime, IndieGoGo. If you look nowhere else, please look at our IndieGoGo and pledge today because we would love your support, which is one of those other perks that I feel to mention. It doesn't matter if you give us $500 or you give us five. On our website, we are going to have a hall of heroes where we list every single person who donated to this crowdfunder. Because you're the guys making our fight to the front lines of fantasy possible with every dime. And we couldn't do this without you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the channel and talking with me about Battleborn.
It's my pleasure, Jonathan. And for all of you out there, for those who yearn for the days fantasy made you feel like that 13-year-old reading Conan for the first time, who have action and heroism beating your heart like a battle drum. Join our ranks today. Become a hero. Become a legend. Become Battleborn today.